The deficits go from 1.1 trillion down to 768 billion, and they go down again all the way to 607 billion in 2015, and then they start to creep up again, and by 2021 it's at 774 billion, and the total over those 10 years, the total debt is $7.2 trillion on top of the 14 trillion we already have. How can you say that we're living within our means?
Well, let me be clear on what I'm saying, because I'm not suggesting that we don't have to do more. We still have all this accumulated debt as a consequence of the recession and as a consequence of a series of decisions that were made over the last decade. We've piled up, we've racked up a whole bunch of debt. And there's a lot of interest on that debt. So in the same way that if you've got a credit card and you've got a big balance, you may not be adding to principal. You've still got all that interest that you've got to pay. Well, we've got a big problem in terms of accumulated interest that we're paying. And that's why we're going to have to whittle down further the debt on, that's already been accumulated. So that's problem number one. And problem number two we already talked about, which is rising health care costs, and programs like Medicaid and Medicare are going to, once you get past this decade, going to start zooming up again as a consequence of the population getting older and health care costs going up more rapidly than incomes and wages and revenues are going up. So you've got those two big problems. What we've done is to try to take this in stages. What we say in our budget is, let's get control of our discretionary budget to make sure that whatever it is that we're spending on an annual basis, we're also taking in a similar amount. All right, that's step number one. Step number two is going to be how do we make sure that we're taking on these long-term drivers, and how do we start whittling down the debt? And that's going to require entitlement reform, and it's going to require tax reform. And in order to accomplish those two things, we're going to have a spirit of cooperation between Democrats and Republicans. And I think that's possible. I think that's what the American people are looking for. But what I think is important to do is not discount the tough choices that are required just to stabilize the situation. It doesn't solve it, but it stabilizes it. And if we can get that done, that starts introducing this concept of us being able to, in a serious way, cooperate to meet this fiscal challenge, and that will lay the predicate for us being able to solve some of these big problems over the course of the next couple of years as well. Again, I just want to repeat. The first step in this budget is to make sure that we're stabilizing the current situation. Second step is going to be to make sure that we're taking on some of these long-term drivers. But we've got to get control of the short-term deficit as well, and people are going to be looking a signal for that. And the choices that we've made are some pretty tough choices, which is why I think you've been seeing some grumblings, not just from the other party, but also from my own party about some of the decisions that we've made.